Hey, everybody, I'm John Halpin. Welcome to the Friday, August 21st edition of the Fox Sports Fantasy 15 podcast and Google Hangout if you're watching on video. I'm here with my buddy Adam Meyer today. Adam's in Cleveland, where everybody's going crazy again this morning. I don't know if they're going crazy. About Johnny Manziel. He played well last night, didn't he?
He did. 10 for 18, over 100 yards to a touchdown pass. And again, we've all talked about this. The Browns are not playoff contenders right now. And the sad thing is, like, for their first four games are basically winnable. So people are going to say, "Oh, we have a good chance of making the playoffs. We're 3-1, or we're 4-0, or however the season starts." But honestly, they're not a team that's going to contend for even an AFC North division title. And I think that this is the time you got to play your young quarterback, use Manziel, get him out there, get him experience. I think he's their best option anyway, considering that he has the mobile option. I mean, Josh McCown, he was very successful in Chicago when you had two tremendous receivers and an amazing running back in Matt Forte. He goes to Tampa Bay, still has two good receivers, but not as good as the running back, and he struggled mightily. And in Cleveland, where the running back game is very almost non-existent as of right now, I think you just go with the young guy and see what he gives you.
All right, yeah, I mean, I guess at some point you have to try to win. If he thinks Manziel can't play, then he can't do it. But if he plays more like last night, look, last night it was, I mean, there were plays, the touchdown, he stepped up in the pocket, nice strong throw, threw one ball across his body, basically rolling left, threw it across his body, completed a pass for, 20 yards or something like that. He just looked different. He looked structured a little bit. I would say that. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some of it. But it was interesting. I hope we're talking about Johnny Football next week, because I like talking about. I think last year we had a streak of every podcast for a month. It was Johnny Manziel, because he was going to start. He was going to play great, and then he had that game where he threw for like 70 yards against the Bengals. So anyway, enough of Johnny Manziel right now. But if you're watching preseason football, you're getting excited. You got to talk about something. Everybody, if you like this podcast, please subscribe on both iTunes and SoundCloud. We really appreciate it. Also, we're both on Twitter. Happy to answer your draft questions. If you haven't drafted yet, I've got another draft coming up on Saturday. This is a weird one, by the way, Adam. It's 5 points per passing touchdown. Not 6, not 4, but 5. It's a PPR. And for quarterbacks, it's a yard per 15 points. So instead of
15 yards?
15 yards per point for the quarterback. So instead of, our leagues are either most leagues are 20 or 25. This is 15. So it's trying to entice you to take the quarterback. I still think I'm stubborn and I wait, but we'll see how this shakes out. It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's a little quarterback heavy in that one, considering they give that extra point for the touchdown and for the only 15 yards instead of 20, 25. But yeah, I think that Andrew Luck's going to go flying off the board in your league there.
I think you're right, but I think this is going to be one of these leagues. It's a league I'm in with a neighbor of mine and some of his friends, and he said there's going to be quarterbacks flying off the board in the first round. So I don't think I'm going to partake in that, but we'll see. But anyway, because leagues all have different scoring systems, every ranking, every recommendation needs to be in context. So if you'd like personal help, tweet us. Adam's at Fox Sports Meyer. I'm at jhalpin37. All right, let's talk. I'm in Charlotte. Let's talk about the depressing news of the week. Kelvin Benjamin, he was looking great in camp, and it's a big disappointment. Okay, so this is big bad news for the Panthers, right? But how much bad news is it? Unless you drafted Kelvin Benjamin or wanted to draft Kelvin Benjamin, I personally think that this does. I don't think this dings Cam Newton from a fantasy standpoint. He might run less. He might throw a little less or throw less effectively, but I think he ultimately might run a little more. Like down near the goal line, there's less reason for him to throw to Kelvin Benjamin and more reason for him to call his own number. I think the offense in general, to move the ball, they might need him to take a little more of the load. I've still got Cam Newton at QB5. How do you think this affects the Panthers offense?
No, I agree with you 100% there. And I'm going to be in this new keeper league where I'm taking over for a team, and it's touchdown only. And obviously I was taking over a bad team, and the three best players that I were considering hanging on to for this season was Newton, Benjamin, and Lamar Miller. And I was iffy on Lamar Miller. And now I'll probably stick with Cam Newton because, like you said, he's still going to get you those rushing touchdowns. And hopefully, he'll run a little more now that he doesn't have Kelvin Benjamin for this year. But man, I was really hoping on that 1-2 punch. But yeah, I think that this really does boost Devin bunches of Funches, as you'll get a lot of fantasy football team names for that one. But yeah, huge target, 6'5", around a 4.5 40 in the combine. And I think that a rookie receiver is the number one option in Carolina. It worked well for Kelvin Benjamin last year, I think it's going to work well for Funchess this season.
And that must pain you as an Ohio State guy. It must pain you to say that about Funchess since he's a Michigan man. So
yeah, but he didn't beat Ohio State, so it's all right.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you on Funchess. And here's the thing people need to remember. Kelvin Benjamin wasn't that great last year. His numbers were good. 73 catches, 1,008 yards, I think 8 or 9 touchdowns. But he was very volume dependent. He got a lot of yards and receptions because they threw the ball to him all the damn time. He was 6th in targets, but he was 17th in fantasy receiving points because, there were some drops and the routes might not have been as great. Basically all the issues that people ascribed to Funchess coming out of college were the same things people said about Benjamin. And Funchess only went, 13 picks after Benjamin did. Different years, I understand. But I just think that anyone who thinks Funchess can't step in and do what Benjamin did, I think he could post a pretty reasonable facsimile of that. And he's unlike the other Panther receivers. He's a big, strong target. Like Benjamin is not quite as big, but faster. But I think he could reasonably approximate those numbers. I've actually got Funchess up at my 30th wide receiver already based on this. And I know this might take a little while. It might not happen right away. But I think he has to emerge as the top target among the wide receivers anyway for the Panthers.
No, absolutely. I agree. And before the injury occurred, you and I both had Funchess around receivers 65, 66 in our rankings. And yeah, I have Nelson Aguilar in the top 40. And I think that I'm willing to put Funchess up there in that category as well. But also, this is going to be a big boost. If he wasn't a top 3 tight end before the injury, Greg Olsen, absolutely a top 3 tight end option right now.
Yeah, they're going to force feed him the ball, definitely. And one other thing about Funchess that just anecdotally, what I've heard here this summer, I have I work for the Panthers a little bit. I have no inside information on what they're thinking about Funchess, but hearing Ron Rivera this summer, he loves Funchess. Whenever he talks about him, in the OTAs, he couldn't stop saying good things. He's like, he stepped in and he's played all the positions because Benjamin was hurt during OTAs. And he would gush when he talked about Funchess. And that just sticks out in my head as sort of a signal of how much they like him. Now, Rivera's not calling the plays, but so hopefully David Shula feels the same way. Anyway, next up, Darren McFadden getting some first-team reps for the Cowboys this week. Are you buying this at all? The people who drafted Joseph Randle in the 3rd round can't be happy about this news. But what do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't big on Randle to begin with. I had him pretty low in my rankings, and I think that I'm going to do the same with Darren McFadden. I'm not sold as either one really as the number 1 option. I'm not going to draft him very high in my leagues. Maybe if all the other number 1 RBs from each team are off the board, I'd consider them. Just because it's a potential starter, but I'm not going to spend a high draft pick on either one of these guys this year. I probably would look more as a boost to Dez Bryant, knowing that he's going to get a bunch of targets as well.
All right, Joseph Randle. I'm using the ADPs at fantasyfootballcalculator.com. Joseph Randle, 32nd overall. Pick round 3, pick 9. I was out there to begin with. I like that his value might drop a little bit. If McFadden's fooling people. With a couple of nice days, I might pick Randle, but not. I'm with you. Not that. Even 4th round, I can't. I don't know if they're going to sign another guy, so I'm out on Randle. Okay, and on McFadden. There's no way I'm ever picking Darren McFadden. Forget about it. Next up, rookie running backs. Todd Gurley. So the helium got into Todd Gurley about a month ago because everybody said, "Oh, look, he's in camp, and he might not be on the PUP list, and everything's great." And then, maybe they'll ease him in. Maybe he'll miss the first couple of games. He's not going to play in preseason. Where are you right now on Todd Gurley?
I'm sticking strong at RB24. I think that's a very fair ranking considering that, like you said, he's going to miss the first week, maybe 2 of the season. And then when week 3 comes, it doesn't mean he's going to be 100-yard per game back coming out of the chute. It's going to take a little bit of time. They're going to want to ease him into that offense. And I think that with Trey Mason there, they already have a guy that they can rely on to get maybe 20 carries a game. So I think that starting off, get 10, 15 at most really well to kind of get him into this offense. But if you're in a keeper league, I'm still going to say Gurley has the potential to be a top 4 round option, considering that he's drawing comparisons to Adrian Peterson. And when you have a high ceiling like Todd Gurley does, I think that it's worth the risk when you have other guys in the league that you can also spend picks on. So
sorry, back up that again. What did you say? What round again?
Well, again, in a keeper league, I would consider him probably around 4 or 5.
Keeper league. I'm in on Todd Gurley right now. His ADP is 50 overall. Late 4th, you're in. For redraft league, not a keeper.
I probably wait until 6 or 7 in a year by year league, just because again he's going to miss 2 of the games, and who knows if the Rams are out of it by the end of the year, they may sit him and then not want to risk the injury to a stud running back that could be the future for a long time for him.
All right. On the other side of that coin, Trey Mason, ADP of 80, looking kind of nice there, because you think he starts the season as the lead runner, and who the heck knows how long he keeps a timeshare. I mean, look, if Gurley's fully healthy, he's the guy, most likely. But
Absolutely.
Until that, we don't know when that happens, and we don't know if they say, maybe for a while we run Gurley 10, 12 times a game and let Mason play.
Yeah, I have no problem drafting Mason as my RB3 or in the flex position spot. It's because he's an RB that's going to start, like I said, the first 2 weeks probably, and then he's going to still get the lion's share even when Gurley starts getting carries. So yeah, I'd still stick with Mason and take him in this offense to see what he can contribute to it. And it's not going to be an expensive option to get to, so you can take someone like Mason, not spend a lot on him, and still get some quality production from your running back position.
See, here's the thing about Mason there. There's plenty of upside. Look, in the first, let's say 2 weeks or so, or maybe longer, he has really nice value, right? But if you take him in the 7th round, what if by week 6 he's a clear backup? Then you're screwed. So I don't know. That's one of those situations I don't know. I think I might want to avoid. And I know I don't know if it's a cop-out or not, but I look and I go, there's so much potential downside, and at a 7th round pick, do I want that potential downside?
Who would you rather have, Trey Mason or Darren McFadden?
Oh, I'd rather have Trey Mason.
There you go.
Darren McFadden's no good. Come on. It's so funny. People are like, oh, he looks great. Come on. Haven't we been down this road many times before, and it's only worked once? Forget this. Come on. He's going to pull a hamstring tomorrow. All right. Other rookie running backs, David Johnson in Arizona. David Johnson, apparently he's going to be active this weekend. They signed Chris Johnson this week, supposedly to add depth. Chris Johnson, speaking of guys who are done, Chris Johnson's done, right? I mean, if this doesn't bother me in Andre Ellington terms, the Chris Johnson thing. The David Johnson thing, I don't know if this was to light a fire or just to add depth because he doesn't like the guys behind Ellington and David Johnson. But David Johnson, people were high on him a few weeks ago. The expectations seem to be tempered. What do you think? Do you want him? Do you think he's a guy who could emerge and take a lot away from Ellington?
I think that he's going to be a guy that you'll see on the free agent or waiver wire, and then as soon as like week 3 or 4 hits and he has that game where maybe he has 4 or 5 receptions, maybe breaks 80 yards, that's when he's going to go flying off the board. The key is to get him the week before that happens. So yeah, I think that again, all these running backs in Arizona, I mean, there was times when Kerwin Williams was a fantasy option late in the season. I think that if you're a running back in Arizona, there's a chance you're going to have a good fantasy impact for at least 1 or 2 weeks. So I think that David Johnson will be a good option. I mean, he was really great in college in Northern Iowa, 5.4 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns. And yeah, I liked David Johnson. I was a little disappointed they signed Chris Johnson just because I thought that it was going to take away from David's role. But yeah, I think that none of those running backs in Arizona are viable options, considering that they're all going to get hurt. I'd rather have Ellington just because he's going to be the starter. But yeah, I think that David Johnson will get some playing time eventually in 2015.
And a current ADP, this is the last few days, current ADP 12th round. So, that's an interesting player. I still like Ellington, though. I don't think he should or is going to get the ball 20 times a game, but I think that's a good thing for him. He gets
PPR leagues especially.
Yeah. David Cobb, Tennessee. Sounds like he's going to get some run with the first team this week. Nice between the tackles runner. The number that sticks out, what did he run, a 4.8 in the combine, I think, which is slower than almost me. But he's a nice, between the tackles kind of runner. He's interesting. He might play any back who's going to get the ball is interesting. Are you good? You liking David Cobb at all? You liking the buzz around him right now?
I do. Last year, the biggest bust in most of my drafts was Bishop Sankey. The dude had a terrible yards per carry. I think it was like 3.4 or something ridiculously like that. And I think that Cobb, if given the chance, can steal that role. I mean, he was amazing in Minnesota, 5.4 2 yards per carry, over 1,600 yards. And when Minnesota had success, if they were going to be in the ball game, it was because of David Cobb. And I think that he has the potential to help carry an offense, take the load off of Mariota and take some pressure off of there. And with Mariota, he's going to need a legitimate running game to help him throw the ball around. And I think that Cobb is someone I would easily take a flyer on late in drafts.
Yeah, right now, Cobb, ADP-wise, low end of the 8th round, everybody. So if you want him, that's probably going to be your cost if you're drafting this weekend. All right, next up, TJ Yeldon. There was a guy who, a lot of buzz early in camp and before camp, people saying, wow, he could be, if things break right, and Gurley's hurt, and this is before Abdullah became a Hall of Famer. After Melvin Gordon, Yeldon, some people thought he could be, let's say, the second best fantasy running back. Now, he's had a sprained finger, which shouldn't be a big deal. He might play this weekend. They're saying, there was a report this week that one of the Jags beat reporters said, I think they'll divide carries earlier in the season and slowly increase Yeldon's workload. So that means Denard Robinson is not, out of the picture just yet. But right now, TJ Yeldon, about halfway through the 5th round by ADP. Is that somewhere you would like him, or do you want to jump a little early? I think I'm still in on TJ Yeldon. I think as my RB2, I'd be pretty happy.
I agree with you 100%. And I boosted Funches, so it's only fair that I knocked down Denard Robinson. He's a guy that led the Jags rushing, and when a guy has less than 600 yards and leads a team in rushing, I think that the job is up for grabs. And with Yeldon there, this is a guy who was stealing carries away from Eddie Lacy as a freshman in Alabama. He broke Mark Ingram's stats over in Alabama, leading the way. I think it was in touchdowns where he stole that record. And I think that Yeldon is a guy who it can be a beast, especially in Jacksonville, when he's going to get a lot of playing time, and they're going to want to see how this rookie can run. And I think that Yeldon, like you said, I would love taking him as my RB2. I think I'd be very confident in him. Do I think he's going to be up there with Hall of Famer Abdullah or Gordon or Gurley? Maybe not, but I think that 4th or 5th maybe out of that rookie class is not going to be a bad spot.
I actually have Yeldon ranked ahead of Abdullah. I'm fine with that. My stock line of the week is Joyke Bell had some injuries in the offseason, but he's not dead. So, and that's what everybody seems to think. I like Abdullah. I liked him before the draft. I think his stock has risen to an unacceptable height for me to draft him, but I like him. For me, Yeldon, like I said, middle of the 5th round, that sounds about right to me. Pretty much that area. If I don't get him, okay. If I get him there, that's fine. But that sounds about like a good zone to look at him in. All right, I want to move on to a wide receiver. I was looking at wide receivers yesterday, looking at the rankings and stats and things like that. And I'm looking, guys, okay, people always say, who's a sleeper? And I don't know if there are so many sleepers anymore, because there are so many guys who do what we do, people who do what we do, and there's so much information out there that everybody knows who the sleeper is. So they're not really sleepers anymore. Amir Abdullah was a sleeper 2 months ago. Now everybody wants to pick him in the 3rd round. Brandon LaFell, the ceiling's not high. It's not like a 1,300 yard ceiling here. But last year, what was he? 74, 900 and 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm getting the stats wrong because I don't have them in front of me. But I feel like Brandon LaFell, if he's my 4th wide receiver, which I think is about where you can pick him, I would like Brandon LaFell. I think even, forgetting about the suspension stuff, which I don't think would affect him that much, and who knows how long Brady's going to be out. LaFell's going in the 9th round. Like I said, 4th wideout, I'm in. I think he's a little underappreciated. Do you?
I think that's a steal, getting him as a 4th wide receiver for a team. I would think that he'd be receiver 3 in some categories, just because he was one of the 3 guys to get 100 targets from Tom Brady last year. And that's huge considering that he's a young guy and he was up with Gronk and Edelman. So when you have a company like that, you only got to expect that those numbers are going to because I think he's more reliable option, I want to say, just because of health-wise. But yeah, I think the LaFell very underrated, and I would have no problem having him on my fantasy team this season.
All right. I'm with you too. And I pulled up those stats. It was, let's see, 119 targets, 74 receptions, 953 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So I'm good there. All right. Last person up, or last topic, tight ends. So I think this year you've got the top two. Okay, you got Gronk by himself.
Yes.
Then you've got Graham, Olsen, Kelsey. I think everybody pretty much agrees that Graham is 2. I think Olsen might be bumped up a little closer to him. Yes, David, Olsen, Kelsey. And then you got a gap.
Martellus Bennett I'd throw in there too, just because of the injuries at wide receiver.
Okay, I'll give you that. I've got him 5th, but I'll give you that. If you miss those guys and you wait, and you say, you know what? Someone just took Kelsey in the 5th round or Bennett in the 5th or 6th. I'm out on this topic. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait. I was in a draft 2 weeks ago. I think I waited till the 11th or 12th round because I said I missed the top 5. And all the rest of the guys, they're sort of the same. Or, the upside, there's some upside guys. There's some solid guys who are going to be like Delaney Walker, I think, is going to catch 75 passes. He's not going to have crazy upside, but, that's okay at that position. If you wait on tight ends, are there guys you like more than others down in that tight end, let's say 10 through 15 or even deeper, that you'd be happy to wait on and take rather than going earlier and taking like Julius Thomas or Jason Witten or some, slow and steady guy like that?
Absolutely. There's 2 guys that are really big on it. They're both on the same team. And I think you know what I'm talking about here. It's Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen. I saw in your rankings you're a little low on Fleener, and I'm really big on them. Both of them scored 8 touchdowns last year. And with Andrew Luck throwing the ball, obviously he has a connection with Fleener. They both went to Stanford. And I think that I'd be happy with either one of those guys as my tight end. In a 10-teamer, I'm probably leaning towards Fleener, but in a deeper league, I would not mind Allen at all. Both those guys are going to get their touchdowns. They're both going to get their targets. I know that's the big knock on them, too, is that who's going to get the ball this time? Is Allen going to score twice? Is Fleener going to score twice? Because it always seemed like, because I had Fleener in a couple of leagues, that whoever was going to get the ball the most that game got it the entire game. Like if it was Fleener's game, it was Fleener the whole time. It was Allen the whole time. And that was a huge risk you had to play. If you had Fleener and you saw Allen score that first touchdown, you were furious because chances were Fleener wasn't going to see the ball the rest of the game. So while it's a big risk playing either one of those two, I think that there's also a big reward going for either one of those two.
All right. My guys, see, my problem with the Colts is that I don't know who's going to get the ball.
Exactly.
And there's so many people on everywhere. That's my beef with Andre Johnson. Like there's so many. Okay, they've got Hilton and they've got Andre Johnson and Gore's in the backfield and they've got the 2 tight ends and they've got Dorsett and Moncrief and I don't know who's going to get it. So that would be my hesitation there. But yeah, I agree with you. That's the thing. Whoever gets the ball is going to get it a lot. You just don't know who's going to get it. My guy, I'm still on the Josh Hill bandwagon. I know Ben Watson's been playing well in camp. I've been down the Ben Watson road before. I don't see it sticking. And Hill is, he's a different kind of player. He's a more athletic, faster guy at this point. Even though he's been split in time, I still think he's going to get his share. The other one's Safarian Jenkins. I always like the rookie quarterback with the tight end. I think Safarian Jenkins is a nice receiver. I know they have other good receivers on that team. Vince Jackson's not what he used to be. I mean, Evans is really good, but I think Safarian Jenkins could have a nice season. Like he's a guy who I'd rather have him in a late round than I like Delaney Walker, but if I have to draft Delaney Walker 5 rounds earlier, I don't know if I want to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'm a little hesitant on Austin Safarian Jenkins just because I was big on him when I was in a college fantasy league, and then last year I was like, oh, he was great in college. He's going to translate well, and he was just a bust last year. But I know that he didn't have the best quarterback throwing the ball, but hopefully Winston leans on him a little more this season than McCown did last year.
All right. Adam, what else you got going on this weekend, football stuff? What are you working on?
Man, this is the busiest time of the year because we got fantasy baseball still coming to an end, trying to help people win their leagues there. We're going to put a bow on that. I'll be giving you your 2-star pitchers on Sunday, getting you ready for the next week. Only a couple weeks left before playoffs start in fantasy baseball, so you have that going. Obviously, the DFS with DJ Foster and I are posting fantasy baseball picks, and we're getting you ready for football too, where they've already released the salaries for DraftKings for week 1. So already jumping on board with that, creating lineups, giving you some suggestions. And busiest time of the year right now. Also, Foster and I split the team previews here, the NFCI and the AFC. All teams are up right now, and we're keeping those updated as the preseason rolls along, keeping you updated with injuries, who's winning battles in camp, and I'm not just talking about the team fights. I'm talking about who's winning the position battles as well. So I think that it's the busiest time of the year right now, getting you ready for those drafts and getting you ready for a very successful end to fantasy baseball and beginning of fantasy football season.
All right. I haven't looked too hard at the DFS for week 1 NFL yet. I will say that considering the Giants defense, Tony Romo might throw 11 touchdowns to Des Bryant in week 1. That's kind of that's a rough prediction. I'm going to go over on 10.5 on that, just so you know.
All right. I like that. I think I would heavily invest in Des Bryant then if that's the case. A lot of solid value with some young receivers. So, I think that Cecil Shorts is a guy that I'm liking too. As long as he keeps winning some position battles as well with Houston, I think that he's a guy that you can maybe get a good bargain with in week 1.
That is an interesting one. All right, I'm going to check out those salaries. All right, everybody, as we said earlier, please subscribe to this podcast if you're listening on both iTunes and SoundCloud. We really appreciate it. Also, the rest of our coverage, foxsports.com/fantasy. If you want to join a league, start a league, whatever it might be, you can do it right now, anytime. We've also got our rankings. We've got podcasts. We've got team previews. I do Periscope chats on Thursdays. We do these Hangouts. There's lots of resources to help you draft, so please go check it out. And again, start your league now, foxsports.com/fantasy. We're going to be back on Tuesday with another one of these, so please come on back. Have a great weekend, everybody, and make sure to watch a lot of football. For Adam Meyer, I'm John Halpin. Thank you for listening to the Fox Fantasy 15.